And this is an important issue for the NFL that has been lingering since February 1 of 2022. That is the day that Brian Flores did the thing that I never thought any coach would do. He sued the NFL, alleging a decades-long pattern of racial discrimination, class action, eventually joined by two other coaches, Steve Wilkes and Ray Horton. But here we are, Michael, August 14, yesterday, 2025. Case is still stuck in neutral because we're still figuring out where the case is going to be resolved. Will it go in full to the NFL's secret rigged kangaroo court of arbitration presided over by the commissioner, which is laughable, frankly, on its face, or will it go to open court? Now, Brian Flores sued multiple different teams. He sued the Dolphins for firing him. He had a contract with the Dolphins. That one's already going to arbitration. But he sued the Broncos for not hiring, in whole or in part due to race. The Giants, same thing. The Texans for not hiring him in retaliation for the lawsuit that he filed against the Dolphins. And he sued the NFL for everything. The question as of yesterday that was resolved by the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit was whether or not the claims against the Broncos, the Giants, the Texans, and the league would have to go to arbitration or would be allowed to go into litigation. And for the second time this week, the NFL system of secret rigged kangaroo court arbitration failed. Brian Flores gets to take those claims to open court, which is good for him and good for us. We're not rooting against the NFL. We're rooting for the truth to come out. The problem with the secret rigged kangaroo court is you don't know what happened. You get no access. There's no sunlight. That's why they like it. They like it because it's secret. They like it because it's rigged. And they like it because it's a kangaroo court and they can do whatever they want. That's good for them. It's bad for those of us who'd like to know what the hell happened because we're not going to know what the hell happened if the NFL gets their way.
That's right. And you said it in your first sentence, Mike. You said what stands out to me, and I really want people to understand what was at stake here, what was risked by Brian Flores. When you said you never thought you'd see it happen, I didn't either. It's remarkable that Flores, and not even taking sides, I'm just saying just from if you just look at it, if you just hover above it and look at the characters involved, and you try to think, okay, what does that side want and what does that side want? So look at it from the perspective of a head coach, a former head coach of the Miami Dolphins who looks at the league, wants to coach in the NFL, and he decides, okay, I am going to take the league to court. I'm going to sue the Dolphins. I'm going to sue the NFL. I'm going to sue the Giants and the Texans. I'm going to do this, and I may not coach again. A lot of coaches have seen what Brian Flores has seen and what he's talking about, and they talk about it privately.
Uh-oh. We lost Michael. Maybe somebody didn't like what Michael Hawley was saying. I'm kidding. I wasn't sure at first whether they had lost me or I had lost Michael. We will get Michael back. But his point is one that is very good, but also surprising how it's gone for Brian Flores since the moment that he filed the lawsuit. Because I assumed one of the reasons no one would ever make a claim like this, you're trading your career. Your career is over. Well, the Steelers, to their credit, they hired him not long after he filed the lawsuit. And then came the Vikings to make him, as of 2023, the defensive coordinator where he's been the last two seasons. Now, will he ever become a head coach again after 2023 when he did a great job with the Vikings defense? His name never came up. Last year it came up and he got some Zoom interviews, but at the end of the day, there wasn't an offer. We'll see what happens this year. The longer this case lingers and the more it proceeds and creates problems for the league and legal fees and whatnot, it's going to be harder for one of the teams to break ranks, much like the Browns did when they gave Deshaun Watson a fully guaranteed contract. You set yourself up to get dirty looks and cold shoulders from the other owners at the cocktail parties. That's the reality. So it's going to take extreme courage. It already has taken extreme courage for the Vikings to make him one of their most prominent coaches, because the teams that have been sued by Brian Flores, I know I worked enough with employers, both who had been sued and I'm as their counsel and as the lawyer fighting the company that fired my clients. They hate those people. They become so biased against them because they are causing us to spend a ton of money to defend ourselves. Nobody's happy about having to spend a lot of money on attorney's fees, and the reason I have to do it is because that person filed a lawsuit, and I don't think the lawsuit has any merit. It's frivolous. Every lawsuit's frivolous that's filed against you. It's frivolous. So the Giants, the Broncos, the Texans, the league office, they can say all the right things, but they're not thrilled with what Brian Flores has cost them and will continue to cost them. And also there's the risk they're going to be exposed in a way that maybe they don't want to be. So that's where that stands. I haven't gotten an update on Michael Hawley. I assume we'll have him back here at some point. They're working on it, I'm told. One other thing, too, and we can't forget this. This is completely unrelated to the merits of Brian Flores' case or where it goes from here. Him filing that lawsuit when he did quite likely blew up the Tom Brady, Sean Payton plan in Miami. It quite likely prevented that from happening because Flores made some strong accusations about tanking and this and that, but the wheels were in motion for Brady to join the Dolphins as an executive, for Payton, who was available at the time, to be hired, for Brady to suddenly decide during the offseason program, I think I'd like to play football for the team that I now work for. So that lawsuit prevented a very potentially bizarre alternate reality with Brady and Payton joining forces with Miami Dolphins in 2022. The NFL's statement that was issued in response to the Flores development is this: we respectfully disagree with the panel's ruling and will be seeking further review. Now, the way this works, you always have to go back to the court that just ruled against you and say, will you please change your mind? They rarely do. And then you go to the next level, which would be an appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court. So the NFL now has two cases that could be on track for a petition for appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court involving the secret rigged kangaroo court of arbitration. One with John Gruden coming out of Nevada, and the other Brian Flores in the federal system. The Supreme Court has to make the decision. Do we see something in these cases? And it's very complicated. A lot of times there'll be a difference of opinion among various federal circuit courts. One has looked at a case and resolved the principles one way. One has done it the other way. We need to unite this. We need to remove this confusion. That's one of the reasons to get the Supreme Court to take up a case. But they can take up whatever case they want, but they take up a very, very limited number of cases in any given year. And it is a long shot to get your case accepted. And usually what will happen in a case like this, like if they accept either of these, chances are they're going to find in the NFL's favor. And the NFL has reason to be somewhat optimistic, especially as to Flores. With Gruden, it gets a little more complicated politically, but given the current constitution of the U.S. Supreme Court, if I was the NFL, I'd feel pretty good generally about my ability to eventually activate my secret rigged kangaroo court of arbitration, because the mindset, the political ideology, the background of the people who are on the Supreme Court would favor me. And I know people are going to be like, no politics, but that's the way it works. If you practiced law as long as I did, you understood very early that the political background of the judges who were either elected to the bench or appointed to the bench, and the federal side they're appointed, that background, their history, their mindset, their philosophy, it is a huge factor in how a case plays out. And 6-3 right now on the U.S. Supreme Court, those philosophies would tend to favor.
What's up, Vikings Nation? It's your guy Victor here with Report Vikings, and today we're diving into a topic that always sparks debate right before the season starts: potential trades. Yep. Every year around this time, Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah seems to pull off something, and I think we're about to see a move or two before week 1 kicks off. So I'm breaking down 3 Vikings who could realistically be traded. We're talking about why it makes sense, who could be interested, and whether or not the Vikings would actually pull the trigger. Before we dive in, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you bleed purple and gold like me, and drop your take in the comments. Which player do you think could get traded before the season starts? Alright, let's get to it. Okay, coming in at number 3, Mickey Blackman. Now, before y'all freak out, I'm not saying this is likely. Blackman has upside. He's only going into year 3, and he had a 71.8 PFF grade as a rookie back in 2023. That's solid. But here's the thing. The cornerback room is crowded. You've got Jeff Okudah, Isaiah Rodgers, Ambry Thomas, Dwight McGlothern, Zamiah Vaughn, and Blackman is still coming back from that ACL tear. And let's be real, Okudah passed him on the depth chart way too easily. That tells me the coaching staff might not be as sold on Blackman long term. If the Vikings are confident in these new faces, or if someone's shining in camp, then trading Blackman for, say, a 6th or 7th rounder could make sense, especially for a team desperate for corner depth. Still, I'd rather keep him and see how he bounces back. But this is the NFL. Strange moves happen. Next up, Ty Chandler. I'm honestly torn on this one. I like Chandler. I want it to work, but we've had him on the roster for a few years now, and it just hasn't clicked. He's shown flashes, but the consistency hasn't been there. Just last week, Chandler had 5 carries for 5 yards and 3 catches for 20. And it didn't feel explosive at all. Now here's the twist. Xavier Scott, the 26-year-old rookie, is pushing hard in camp. If Scott keeps climbing, Chandler could be on the outside looking in. And if that's the case, why not trade him instead of cutting him? Maybe you get a 7th rounder or even a conditional pick. That's better than nothing. Fun fact, Chandler went to Tennessee while T. Martin was OC there. Martin's now with the Baltimore Ravens, and Baltimore could definitely use RB depth. Keep an eye on that. And finally, the most likely trade chip, Blake Brandel. Look, Brandel is solid. He started all 17 games last year, and when he was lined up next to Christian Darrisaw, he looked great. But when Darrisaw went down, Brandel's play dropped off. And now the Vikings have added more depth behind him. Michael Juergens, Joe Huber, Henry Bird. They're all pushing. Teams always need offensive line help this time of year. If someone calls and offers a 6th round pick for Brandel, Kwesi might just say yes. Plus, it opens up a bit of cap space. He's been with us since 2020, always a team guy, but if the front office believes in the younger depth, Brandel could be on the move. So there you have it. Vikings fans, Mickey Blackman, Ty Chandler, and Blake Brandel. 3 guys who could potentially be traded before week 1. Personally, I'd be surprised if more than one of these actually happens, but it's worth keeping an eye on. Kwesi always moves in silence. And then bam, trade alert. What do y'all think? Drop a comment. Who should the Vikings trade? Who should we definitely keep? Share this video with your fellow Vikings fans, and let's talk some football. And of course, hit that like, subscribe, and notification bell so you never miss an episode of Report Vikings. Skull Nation, we're almost there. Week 1 is coming. Let's get it.